Welcome everybody to Taller Boricua. Our incorporation is a non-for-profit. It's called the Puerto Rican Workshop. This organization started in 1969 and it was incorporated in 1970, 1971. And there's been many mentors, many people have gone through here, artists, very well known. You could check our website and a lot of history. We have our archives, and eventually our archives are going to become being the internet, so people could look at history, and also they will be linked to other museums and other archives, like archives in Puerto Rico, in Caguas, because one of our two mentors, Rafael Tufiño and Carlos Osorio was from Caguas, and Caguas has archives in the museum, and they have a whole gallery on Carlos Osorio. So all these things are going to become more so that scholars and students and people can study and see when we go what the story has been. And it's a story of a barrio. There's different barrio, Loisaida is a barrio, Williamsburg is a barrio, and el barrio de East Harlem is a barrio. Anyway, so I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to this exhibit. I want to thank Niesca for funding this exhibit. I want to thank Taller Boricua and Naika, who is the mother administrator of our organization at this point. Moving forward, I want to thank one of the board members who's here, Evelyn Collazo, for being present today. And there's many people that, like Josie knows about George Jorge Soto, who was one of the members also years ago. Want to welcome you not only to our galleries at Taller Borica, which is housed at the Julia de Burgos, 1680 Lexington Avenue, but want to welcome you also to the Rafael Tufiño Printmaking Workshop. That's where the collective works, and we do graphics. So let's celebrate today this great, fantastic artist, James Cuebas, and the curator, Alberto Justiniano, who created the exhibit. And I'm going to pass the microphone to them. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. The exhibition that we're looking at here, that opened on Thursday, shows 5 decades of James Cuevas' work. Okay, James has been doing this type of work since very early in his life, right? And one of the things that I want to ask him that came to mind when I was curating was, how old were you when you started, and what inspired you?
I would give credit. You can hear me, everyone?
Yeah.
I could give credit first to the women in my family. First, I had my aunt, Margarita Vesco. She was a very interesting lady because she, at that time in the 1960s, she lived in Mexico. And she was the personal assistant to Maria Luisa Landin and other people. But in New York, she created the what's called the Lola Beltran fan club. But in those years, I was around 5 or 6. She would take me along with her to the theaters in New York City. So at that time, the theaters were really grand, and I remember that. And also, she was the one who took pictures, the photographer, the family photographer, and she gave me as a gift the Kodak camera. So that was the beginning. Okay. And then later on, also during that time at around 7, I'm from the Lower East Side. After school, I met Nancy Wells, painter. Do you know Nancy Wells? And she left a big impression on me. At 7, the art class, industry settled. Then later on, during high school, I went to the art high school, the high school of art and design, and during that time, while at art and design, I I met my photography teacher at Henry Street Center, and then a friend of mine took me there. He happened to be here for the opening, John Rodriguez, and I met Nancy Stiles. Nancy Stiles was a member. She was a poet photographer, member of the Greenwich Village Poets. So I studied photography with a poet. So that made a big impression on me. And she also took me along to a lot of these events. She was a student of Aesthetic Realism Foundation, a philosophy of art. And so that's when it started. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Regarding the High School of Art and Design, because you said that you went to the High School of Art and Design, right? But you're a photographer, right? To get into art and design, didn't you have to be an artist? Didn't you have to know how to draw?
First, you had to draw and pass what's called a drawing test. At that moment, it wasn't photography. I knew I was gonna go in. I wanted to draw, paint. Also, I painted because I started with Nancy Wells. Actually, I think I wanted to be a painter first, and then in photography, and then I decided that because of Nancy Stiles, that photography is what I wanted to do. Also, keep in mind that when you're 17 years old, I would say my discipline came from that, because when you study photography, in that time, I had to mix chemicals. I would go in the dark room. There was a certain discipline and safety and procedure in order to make these prints. That's where a lot of the black and white prints in the last room came from. Yeah.
So the mixing of those chemicals in the dark room, right? Safety.
Safety because they were toxic. So you had to be careful. You should wear gloves. Yeah, there was safety involved. Yeah.
The materials that you're working now, because that would be what the silver
Silver
gelatins.
Yeah,
right?
it was called the silver gelatin black and white. They were made in the dark room. You could picture everyone here. The dark room. It's not really dark. You have an amber light to work with, but you would work with an enlarger.
So the work that you see here or that you've developed here, they differ from what you've done in the past, right?
Yes.
But there's some continuity, right? There's some sameness to the chemicals in developing. Not the same chemicals, not the enlargers, but how do you do this type of stuff, like the bromides, okay? The gum bicarbonates,
And
okay? And the cyanotypes.
I'm gonna let me see if I go back. Remember that in New York City until like around 2000, I work in the industry too. I work as an archivist, printer for an advertising photographer. So at that time, and it was in the Flatiron district on Fifth Avenue. So at that time, there was still a lot of places to print. And the reason I took that job with the photographer is because he had a darkroom. Also, the black and white printer was important. Although I studied color, but my focus was black and white.
So I want to ask you something. This is very important. So really, when you really started, you said you wanted to be a painter. So starting to do drawing and starting to do color gives you a vision to focus on what's important in terms of what you want to do in society, how to view things. Because if you say that later on we decided to go to photography, and now you're working also on prints, which is paper, and you could print in canvas or anything. And later you could do stuff on tiles too. But what I'm saying is that beginning of focusing where let me give you an example. Walking down the street, your eye and yourself as a person will bring you to things that maybe other people might not see. So you do a study in terms of that. You know what I'm saying? You focus and you know how to pick things.
I want to say that in photography, also in painting, a lot of it begins with the light. You know, turning light. I also was a trained portrait photographer, meaning that I had to study the artificial light, how to lit up a person or a product. I didn't find that the most interesting. So the going out and looking at the light, how it changes, was part of it. That kind of like inspired me.
So working through all of that, that's what I'm pointing when you start with a vision in the beginning, it gives you an idea of where to focus, how to study the situation, that you're more aware when you're walking, where you're anywhere, a sound, all your senses are more defined because you are always looking for something that you want to do and bring into the art situation. And what happens with that helps you focus and decide what things you want to capture that really shows your character. And also, outside from showing your character through what you want to do, and you talk about portraits or anything else, you also are bringing character out of whatever you're doing that you present in some of these prints here.
I would say that looking back at that time when I was 17, I wasn't thinking of any of that. I knew that I saw a subject, I reacted to it. I didn't know it wasn't that I was looking for something. I just reacted because I carried the camera with me. However, my teacher, Nancy Starros, she knew how to read photographs. She knew a lot about me without me knowing about myself at that time.
So, so from the time that you're 17 to now,
Yes,
you're seasoned. You have become a seasoned artist.
I believe so. Yes.
So now that you're exposing all 50 years of work, also, it teaches young people, to give them an idea where to go and really how to establish themselves and what to look for. So to become a mentor of other people.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to
So,
say.
going back to what Nitza was talking about, the observations, okay, that you've developed in all these years, and going around with your camera, which was your companion, right? Um, these images that you bring out here, it's like a moment in time, right? It was like right at that moment you were there, okay?
Yes.
And your intuition as a photographer, as an artist, as a printmaker, um, led you to these beautiful prints. I mean, when I was curating it, I'm looking at them and I'm saying, amazing, amazing. And I'm saying amazing because it's your vision that's coming through. And what Lisa was saying earlier regarding your skills or your developmental skills early in your life as an artist, drawing and painting, developing your eye, and also the teachers that were helping you see that had led you to this wonderful show, okay, of so many years of your practice and how you put it together and made it work, okay? Now, one of the things that I want to ask is, when you're in the studio creating these things, I know that you have the vision in looking at these things out in the real world, okay? Looking at the light, looking at the shadows, looking at the composition, right? When you're in the studio and you take that film, that archive that you have, which is a 35 millimeter film, and then you make it this for the gum bichromate, that's a large film.
Yes.
How do you work from something this small to make it come up this large and so clear still?
Like for example, let's say if it's 35 millimeter, which is small, or 2 1/4, which is a square film, thank God to scanning.
Okay.
Okay, we all know about scanning. So you scan this, and then actually I have an example. I will show you.
Yeah.
You guys gonna see the magic.
This is a portrait. It's going to look like this. You
Yeah.
see? And this I printed with the on a printer.
On the printer.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold this while you speak.
Yeah.
Hold that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll lift it.
It begins with the film. I work with film. Now, this happens to be part of the series, which is called the Woman Near the Window. It happens to be a portrait of my mother, Maria Resto. Maria Resto was an avid reader. Since I was a kid, she had a collection of the Spanish novelist Diálogo.
Yeah, was my favorite.
My mother had like hundreds and hundreds, and she was sending me to people in the neighborhood to trade. I would bring the books, and then they gave me, books that she haven't read, and that was she inspired me. Also, she was very supportive of everything I did. You got to remember that I grew up with a single parent, my mother. So by the time I was 14, she had to trust me because I was pretty much independent. And then later on, because of the atmosphere of the Lower East Side, 1970s, 80s, my escape was to the West Village at a very young age. To me, that was exciting because it was a different world. Still in 1970s, late 70s, it was the artists, the bohemians, the arts were out, just being out to like 6 o'clock in the morning, meeting with friends. So,
Yeah, because talk a little bit about the Lower East Side at that time. They were building, there was a lot of drugs,
yes.
lots of drugs. People were burning cars in the Lower East Side. A lot of buildings were dilapidated.
Yes.
There was so much, it was a very bad condition. Sometimes people used to go through a building and smell sweet whatever. It was somebody's dead because of the overdosing that was going on. I mean, you talk about overdose now. It was happening in our barrios. So being a kid and living alone with a mom that has to go work every day, she has to trust you. So you learn survival skills,
Yeah.
and keeping out of trouble is your camera because you want to do something and you get creative. Not everybody has that how would I say that in their families, I mean people were just preoccupied with going outside, working, making sure kids went to school. It was very, very tough time for the Puerto Rican community in the Lower East Side until things started changing with the political scene that people made together, because it's usually Puerto Rican, Polish, Jewish, mainly. And Miriam Freelander was the councilwoman at that time. And it is true, after you pass through Second Avenue, all the alphabet city, that later on we changed that because we call Avenue C, Bimbo Rivas, who was one of the poets, and the New Rican poet Cafe Miguel, Pedro. So all these people are also going after Astor Place divided the Lower East Side from the West Side. So that's a great for a kid to get that experience.
From a long time ago, I was aware of what danger was because I saw it. But my escape was Henry Street Settlement. It happens at Henry Street Settlement, we were rich because the photography program. They had a tremendous photography program with Nancy Stiles. So I had that. I also had a bike. So my route was to hit the East River, go all the way down to the west side so I could avoid Avenue D. Okay? So I also have my camera with me. So I'm just saying things that come up. That's just
Yeah,
thinking.
that's great. That's great. You wanted business.
So you had to be careful
Yeah.
because the
I wasn't
camera.
afraid though.
You wasn't
I
afraid of
wasn't
the camera.
afraid.
You
I
always
wasn't
have.
afraid because I think that even in the neighborhood on the Lower East Side, what's called the people who are involved in all these things, they knew each other by face. So they knew I was there, but yet I didn't want to be around it. Yeah. So the escape was the world of it was a different world from east to west.
Yeah.
At 30 I walked. Most of the time, very little money, no money on me, but I just walked with my camera. I met her friends. It was a big time with music, the music of the 1970s.
Yes.
There was always a party. There were parties until 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how I graduated just from marine design on time.
It's interesting. Yeah, when you start talking about the clubs and things like that, I know that you have a series that you did.
Yes.
Okay, the Gigi Barnum series. Okay. I mean, how did you take your camera in there? Did they allow cameras in the clubs?
They
Things like
didn't
that?
share. I always went to these places. I brought the camera, and then that night was very special because it was what's called the like Silk Field Follies, and then I took these images, and later.
What was her name? What was her name?
Her name was Tiny. At that time, she was a sensation. Everybody knew who she was. She was very social, very beautiful, and later I found out she was murdered. So this is why, to honor her, I did these portraits. Yes, that was the Gigi Barnum Room, Times Square, New York City, 1979. Prior to that, it was called, they had different names, but it came from the Peppermint Lounge. Those are you, right, who knows? So that's a history. And no longer there because I was curious of the building. It was a big theater and they had flying trapeze. It was a fun place.
Yeah, I see that a lot of your work has sort of history. It's sort of like marks a time and era that no longer is even here. Okay, like the piers.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you have a lot of images like the World Trade Center that shows up in some of your images that are even like in the 80s, right?
You know that from the Lower East Side, from where my mother lived, actually my niece lives in that apartment, and on Columbia Street. The twin towers was like a vantage point. You could see it almost everywhere. But from my mother's window, you could see the twin towers. You could see the twin towers. From
Well,
a
you
lot of
have
places.
a great photograph or print right here with Miguel Piñeiro.
Yeah,
Sitting in one of the rooftop. He's sitting in rooftop because that's what the Puerto Rican used to do with their families. You go to the rooftop to be in the hard beach.
Hard beach.
Go to La Playa. La Playa, and used to listen to music up there and all of that. And Mikey, and a lot of the poets think that they used to go to the roof. And here I see Mikey sitting on top of the roof, and in the back you see the World Trade Center.
Yes.
Which is not there anymore because of what happened in 2001, right?
Yes.
So 9/11. So it's really great that you were able to capture him. You know, were able to capture also in this other photograph in Coney Island. I don't remember. I remember what used to be called. You know, you used to go up on the chair all the way to the top, and they used to throw you down.
Oh, parachute, the
It's
parachute.
the parachute.
Parachute, yeah.
You capture all of that.
I heard that they call this the Eiffel Tower of Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's true.
So I thought that was funny.
Eiffel Tower. It's not Paris, but it's Coney Island.
Yeah. But that was Coney Island was always a great getaway. When you have no money,
Yes.
just enough to get there, and it was
Well,
great.
just like now they call the beach in the Bronx,
Yeah.
Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they call it?
Puerto Rico.
The Puerto Rican beach over there.
Yeah.
Puerto Rican Riviera. The Riviera,
That's right.
the Riviera. So we have our ways of renaming our stuff, and capturing it, taking that moment, the location, the timing, and in a way making it very Puerto Rican, very New Rican, because a lot of people used to go to Coney Island. That used to be the getaway.
Yes.
Con el caldero, se llevaba el caldero para la playa, and they used to have lunch out there with their family. So you have some very great, also people jumping from the pier on
Yes.
the West Side Highway. Want to talk about that a little bit?
The what I call dive, actually, that's connected with the Coney Island. These were a young, and it happened to be Puerto Rican. They were jumping off this thing. I thought that was amazing. It's something that I couldn't do. I thought that was the most amazing that you would do this.
Jumping off
Jumping off the there's that pier.
that goes
They
up.
jump off the pier.
Right.
So that's where that happened.
So talking about New York, but that's not the only place that James has been. Okay, James has been all over. Okay, I was looking at one of his images in the other room where he has all of the vintage. I call them the vintage prints. Okay, where he has the DuPont Hotel.
Right.
When it went up in flames, James was there.
Yeah, they didn't talk about that.
He was there, and I when I saw that, I said, James, you were there? He says, I have other images. Talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was one of the saddest events because it was New Year's Eve, 1986, Puerto Rico. I was staying with my grandmother. She's over there, Abuela Jacinta. My father was there, and then it was New Year's Eve, and I told him, look, I want to go out to the condado, go to the beach, hang out, and then I'll come back. I said, you don't have to pick me up because they were public cars to take me back. And I already knew how that worked. So I had it all planned. So anyway, I'm on the beach and it's like, I think I had a beer or something to relax. And then I hear this explosion. I have the camera and I photograph scenes, which I don't think that was important to show because it was something else. But the first scenes of the explosion behind the hotel, and then you know what happened. Because it was a casino, the doors automatically closed, and all the people in the casino died. And there were people, and then after behind the hotel there was this fence, and people who were out in the pool were climbing that fence, jumping in the wall in blood on the beach. So that's just to give you an idea what happened. Yeah, I reacted to that, but I never show those pictures because I don't think there's a need to. I just show that image because it's something I experienced.
Yeah, it's part of your history.
Yeah,
It's part of your history because I didn't know that you had photographed the DuPont until I presented to you a Troncoso, who was the attorney that did the whole case for the families in that building so that they could get some money. And that was one of his biggest cases. His name is Troncoso. And he got so interested in your prints because of his archives. Also, he has archives and story about the case. So, and he was looking for images where he said there's an image where the woman jumped, the boyfriend jumped from the top floor, and then when she jumped, she stayed up in the air, and she was canonized or something like that. It's interesting.
Yeah. I had my camera. I reacted to what I saw. It wasn't beautiful, so it wasn't important. It's part of my archives, but I felt that was an experience, and that's why I showed that last print. Yeah. To show that I experienced it, but that it's not. I don't want to see. I don't want to show anything else. No.
Not life, right? You lived a wonder, and you're still doing it. my last question to you is, what is your plan for the future with your image making and your artistry?
First, I always, for me, art, photography has been first form of self-expression. It's part of my life. It has given me great satisfaction. It has. And going forward, I'm part of the Rafael Tufiño Printmaking Workshop as Nitza Tufiño as the director. And we have very important, interesting projects. As a printmaker, this is ongoing. Okay, there's a lot of work to do.
Right.
And recently, it's something very interesting that I always give myself, aside from the projects that we do, I also give myself personal projects. Things that I when I get home, I think and I write it down. I say, I want to do this. Recently, a very interesting photograph that Rafael Tufiño took
Oh yeah.
of the poet Juan
Orejel,
Cornell,
Orejel poet.
the
Right.
poet. And then I said to myself, this is an amazing photograph. And I could imagine Rafael Tufiño, his relationship with the poet and that he photographed. It's an amazing
Yeah.
poet. And it's in Nitza's collection. So, of course, 99% of the time, I work with my own images. But as a printmaker, and also with keeping in mind that I want to print for conservation. Because in these techniques, you want to print so you can leave behind so it could last a century. Okay, so I asked Nitza permission because that's what you do,
Yeah.
and she said yes. So I did some proofs you have done, and that's a project that I have to finish because
Yes.
I think that that's an important image, and
Yeah.
for the archives.
For the archive.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting too because if people have interesting photographs of people that other artists have done of them or whatever, it's good that we try to do something with it.
Yes.
So that, it's part of our history. And we exploit it and we really work on it.
I always take off my hat, I would say, to the poets, because Nancy Starros was a poet,
Uh-huh.
and that was the beginning. And to me, the poets are amazing.
Yeah, but you're a poet. These works that you see here is from a poet, except that it's done in a different medium. You know what I mean? But the fact that you open yourself to viewing and feeling and discussing all these things, and because you're stopping time. This time already passed, and we could only relive it through your work that we have here. So this is very important in terms of history. You know what I mean? You also have, because I want to tell you, participated in doing portfolio for Consejo Gráfico,
Sí.
which we as Talleres were part of the Consejo Gráfico. There are different talleres, from Chicago, Arizona, and there are other artists. So we did one with the environment that I think you put it here. You have
Yes, it
another
happens to
one.
be this first one. It's different. This is
Yeah.
what's called a proof.
Uh-huh.
And then for Consejo Gráfico, I did an edition. It was about, I think it was 25 or something. 30, yeah.
Five artist group and 30 pieces for Consejo Gráfico, and it was about climate change.
It was a protest for climate change, and I thought that was interesting.
Right.
So I didn't know. I was there.
Yeah.
Because Central Park is across the street. I live 2 blocks from Central Park. I live on the Upper West Side since 1991. So Central Park is a big part of my life. The reason I moved to the Upper West Side, and back in 91, first I wanted to stay in the Lower East Side. Because I couldn't find anything. And then I found this apartment on the Upper West Side, but the Upper West Side in 1991 is not the Upper West Side. It's not. It was, I almost got mugged a couple of times. I had to run.
Yeah.
But I never got mugged. But anyway, That's yeah.
So there's also with your work, there's a lot of social justice issues because that's a social justice issue.
Yes.
And the fact that you participated with other Chicanos, which also have the same fight, and we always try to unite in these portfolios, you know, we were part of it. And we're still going to do more portfolios. So.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited with the Rafael Tufiño Printmaking Workshop. Like I said, we have a lot of projects starting Monday. I have to get back to that work.
Right.
Get back to work.
Get back to work, yes.
I mean, we were in the last 2 weeks. I have to say that I want to thank Albert because when you do this kind of show, I have to step back and say, Albert, I have to respect you, and you do. And he out of respect asked me, is this okay and that okay? And I said, I want you to do what you want because you're the curator. But I was amazed with his vision of how he put everything together. So I want to thank you.
And I thank you, and I thank Nitza, thank Felix Plaza, who was sitting in this.
Ria Plaza.
Yes,
Nice,
Mr.
yeah.
Plaza. Yeah,
He helped with
we.
the.
It's like a collaborative team. We work together, and while I was curating the show, I would lay things out, and I would ask James, "Do you really want this print in here?" And he'll look at me. He says, "Yeah, I want that print in there. If you want to take anything, you can take that one out of there."
That's
And I said, "Okay." So that's all.
That's
we
how
do.
it worked.
Okay.
It was a great experience.
And at the same time, Felix is standing there, and we would look at him and say, "Felix, what do you think? This one or this one?" Okay? And Felix will look. He says, "I like that." I says, "James, how about you?" James says, "I like that one too."
That's how it went.
Yeah, Felix will say that. Okay, but it was a collaborative work. I'm not going to say that I did it all. I mean, it's my vision on the layout and things like that. But with the help of James and Felix, we were able to put this together. Especially because this is James' vision. This is his observation. This is his experience. We have to respect what he wants and what he believes should be shown and what needs to be present up front, right?
And yet, I have learned that as a photographer, printmaker, at some point you need to let the control. Don't have control because this is you don't have control. At some moment you do have a control, but you have to let go of it because that's a healthy thing to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. So that's it. There's work. So thank you everyone for coming today. And this question, yes. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming today. So we're gonna take some questions from the audience, okay, if you have any.
Well, so you were mentioning, just in case people aren't aware, and if they are, you'll hear it again, the difference, you were mentioning artist proofs and editions. So you want to explain to the audience here what an artist proof is and an edition.
And an artist proof to me is when you make that first print, and you don't go any further. You make that first print, and then you put it aside, and you look at it, and maybe you look at it for a long time until you make a decision as to which colors you want to use, which paper you want to use, if you want to do an edition. Usually, I don't do a lot of edition, only when we're working with our projects. But personally, the prints I make, I'll go, since I have so many images, and because of time, and also no rush, but let's say I'll work on an image and I'll print 1, 2, 3, and I stop if I'm happy with one of them. And that's how I work.
Yeah, but I want to clarify a little bit about when artists, you don't have to have an edition of 30 or 100, 200. Sometimes that happens. But when you're working, you could make an edition of 10, and then you stop there. You know what I mean? So you have a few proof, which are called artist proof, and you sign them as artist proof, and then the rest they get signed as an edition. And if you have sort of like a theme, even yourself, and you want to do sort of like a portfolio, then you work on a theme and you could have 10 prints and put them all together and create a portfolio of 10, and you could sell it as a portfolio with a history, a preface, history about, what it is, the technique and all of that. So that's how artists work with prints. That's how we work at the print shop. Anyway, so you're more interested, you come pass by one day, we're gonna have an open house. We everybody know when the open house is gonna happen, so you can come and see how the artists work with the prints. Hold on a second.
Also, an artist proof is really sort of a sample, so you could have variations, and in addition, they're all the same.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And one is not less than the other. They all have a similar. In a way, an artist proof might have more value
Sometimes.
than an addition.
That's what I was going to say.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
I don't think I need the mic. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So first I want to commend you. I just met James this year when I joined the Opinion. And I've met you before, but not to the extent of this. I want to commend you on a really beautiful show.
Thank you.
I had seen some of the ones that you had shown, and then I didn't realize you would fill up the whole place. You had so much more. And just observing you and listening to you, I think you lit up when you started talking about the one about your mother in the window and what she was reading. But one thing I noticed about you is that even though you don't have the camera, you're sort of still behind the lens. You're behind the lens because it sounds like behind the lens, you're not sure what you're capturing, but you're just capturing.
Mhm.
And as you're talking, all these memories are coming back. And you're not sure where you're taking it, but I just feel like you're still capturing behind the lens. I did see some that you did some travels, but did you want to mention any of those that I'd be interested in knowing?
Yeah, I mean, the travels were very important because that was another way of going to different places and learning, and it was slow travel because I stayed in places for 2 months, 1 month, and that were very special. And there was a time where, like, for example, like right now, in Europe, a lot of these places you go, I can't go back there. Recently I went to Portugal. It's one of my favorite places. And I said, let me go back to the Sintra. Sintra is a city, and they have this in the mountaintop, this amazing palace. So there were lines all around. You got to get time tickets and this and that, and there's crowds. I said, no, I'm glad that I went. I went there last time. Yeah, because when I went last time, I actually climbed from the bottom up to the palace, and I was by myself. Yeah, so those experiences were very important. And those prints I made like 30 years ago, and I put them away. That's another thing, like for this show, I brought a lot of stuff out, and it just brought me back to some time.
Well, we're glad that you did. Glad that you did.
So I'm interested in your thought process in bringing the work together, because what I find interesting, especially about this wall, is you have this print
Yes.
that is very raw and grimy and captures like a even 1940s kind of vibe, gangster kind of vibe. And then you have these the two that are to the side, very ethereal and almost like that could be part of a children's book with the kids climbing in the trees. And then you have what looks like a Degas painting to the right. And so I'm like, so why did you put these together? Like, what was your...
Let me go back. Mentioning that I don't want to have control on how you
Yes.
put things together, I left that to the curator.
Right.
And I love that because I think the second image, it's a place that was of the climate cold. It was a cold
That was a
night.
cold place.
It's a
It's
cold
very warm though. Yeah, the colors that you use give it a very soft.
No,
This one, La Falcona.
La Falcona.
So
Yeah.
let's talk
That's what I'm
about
talking about. This one being very dark and gritty, and then having this very ethereal and almost you can use it in a children's book, but it's very warm, even though he says it was a cold place. I thought it was in Puerto Rico. I
No,
wanted
it
to
is.
know what-
Yeah,
oh,
I'm
okay.
glad you mentioned that because
And then this one looks like a Degas to me.
thank you. I want to mention, thank you, Kelly, right? Kelly, that you brought that up because this is when the curator comes in. He puts this together. Of course, he's always asking me if it's okay. And I said, everything you do is okay. And then, but what I like about the second image, that scene, that's called a night storm. It's in New York City. It's a cold night, snowing. But next to it, you have the opposite, which is the, happens to be the Falcona is in Bayamo, is where my father's family had most of the relatives lived. It was the countryside. So it went from cold to hot. I don't know, and I like that. And I saw that connection.
And it, just to interject, I think it might answer some of your vision. So these are gum,
Gone by.
but also the ones in blues it's an addition. They're cynotypes. So you want to explain the cynotype? What
Sorry,
that
so
entails?
absolutely.
Let me just say something. Let me try to answer your question
Yeah,
quickly,
because
okay?
the question was.
So
did
the
you-
reason why I put them in this order is because I wanted to show the different techniques and the vision that James has as a photographer, printmaker, and artist. Okay, it was just not only the photographs; it's the way that he saw things and how he decided to produce them as works of arts. Okay, James thought he thought that he was going to show all of his vintage works out front first. And I said, no, we can't do that. We have to show what you're doing today. And then once they see what you're doing today, they can go and see where you started. And that's where people wind up in that room at the end, which is what I wanted them to do. Okay? If I would have had it here, they would have seen all the other stuff. They would have got stuck here. We have people getting stuck in the back. And the reason why I set it up like this is so that they can see how his observation, his techniques, and his skills applied to the various images in the front.
I want to look the gum bichromate and the phenotype. These are 19th century photographic techniques, and it was important for me to work with this because that's part of conservation. So going forward, if we're working on projects, that's the direction that we should go. The prints needs to be of the highest quality. These are only two techniques. There's many others that we work with. We work with Nitza works. I call her as a master of the wood cutting. That's one technique. And then you have masters work with the linoleum type. And there's so many, yeah. And silk screen. Yeah.
Monoprints.
That also involves the experimentation of mixing of techniques.
Yes.
So in some of the images on the first one, the sailor boy, I mix the techniques. It's a gum bichromate plus the cyanotype. I want to mention the La Pareja. Those are very special because I started traveling to Puerto Rico in 1973. My mother will send me to stay with my father the whole summer, and then I will go back in the holidays. But in 1974, I was in school, and then I was going to go to Puerto Rico, and then my a good friend of mine said, "So why don't you visit my grandparents?" I said, "Where are your grandparents? Where are they? Oh, they live in Patilla, blah 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 blah, Puerto Rico." So when I got to Puerto Rico, I was staying with my family, and they said in Spanish, "Well, where do you want to go?" Because they wanted to take me around pasearme. So I said, "I want to go to Patillas," and they laughed because to them that was like far away from Trujillo Alto.
Yeah.
So anyway, no phone, everything. I get there, and I introduce myself, and they were like so happy. Remember, no phones at that time. These are country folks. So I really like these portraits because it was some of my early work. I was 16, 15, around there when I took these portraits.
You weren't even in the high school of art design.
I was.
You was? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What? First year probably.
Second year.
Second year.
It was art and design was 73 to 77. Or so. Yeah, 73. Yeah. 73. Yes, 72 77.
Okay.
Graduated in 1977.
Okay.
So in 1974, John Rodriguez, that's his grandparents, and that's how it. But I remember the experience. These people, the country folks, the Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
you see that they're smiling and so
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
That's Puerto Rico. This is Puerto Rican people. This is who we are. This is also very interesting, and we have to take in mind that as he's developing all these different techniques and way of seeing and producing the work, he has to talk about discipline as an artist, what it takes to do all of this, how many hours, and how many other things you have to give up because you have to do this. Very important if you want to produce quality.
I think that the discipline with me, remember that looking back, now that you asked the question, I was raised by a single mother, independent already by 14. I had my first job as a delivery boy at 13, working for a, after school I would drop by in the Lower East Side. It was a Jewish butcher. Terrific. And then I would find out if he needed any delivery, and then he would send me to Brooklyn, the Bronx. For me, that was a big deal. And then I get tips and everything. So that was part of I felt discipline, but also with the High Street settlement photography and and learning photography. I think the photography, the art, gave me the discipline for the rest of my life as a responsibility as part of what I do, and that I enjoy, and that I've gotten the personal satisfaction is great.
Anyone else?
Just want to also say congratulations. It's a
Thank
beautiful
you.
show to all of you. And I'm just really taking it in. And I was curious if you could just walk us through your process when you're doing something like the bichromate print and what
Yes.
decisions you're making as you put in. And just this roughness of these edges, because I do see the unity in these pieces as well,
Yes.
with the treatment on your borders. And so just what your thinking process is, I'm sure.
When you're in the dark, I'm gonna show you something. I have it here. I think I bought it with me. Anyway.
You have a bag under the
Yeah, the black bag.
Underneath the chair.
Yeah, but there's another bag. I bought some supplies because I'm glad you asked that question. There's another bag. What is it?
Yeah, we have it back here.
Yeah, okay.
No, that.
I want to show the some of the supplies I work with.
I got
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Gotcha.
Of course, this is not the dark room, but let's say you picture you're in the dark room, right? And then I have the beauty about the gum bichromate is that you have all these pigments. There's like 6 types of glass. There's like 20 types of green. Felipe, you know this.
It's powder. It's powder.
It's pigment powder.
Pigment.
I want to thank Felipe Raza because I studied this 20 something years ago. And then when Felipe was doing, I was assisting Felipe, he tells me, why don't you do this? So he inspired
you to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like in the back burner.
Yeah.
And then for a long time, because of the black and white printing, I didn't have access to that anymore. You know, because of the whole digital and everything. The documents were disappearing, the ones that you print. It became more expensive.
So you use those.
These you mix in the document. So let me show these. Okay, that's some. They come in different. Like this was this bronze pearl. So experimentation is a big thing because what I would like is customized colors. You know, a sepia could be a customized. The blues, there's like how many blues are there? Like 100. and the blacks, and this is burnt umber. That third one that you mentioned is a burnt umber, and that's how I got this. The reason is that when I'm in the dark room, I have the paper, I mix the solutions, the pigments, gum arabic, together with potassium. I don't want to get too technical. It's just what I use.
Okay.
Together with potassium dichromate, you gotta mix it. You mix it with the pigment, mix it well, and then you have your paper, and then you use this marker brush. And that's the moment when you really gotta focus because you're doing strokes. And I think that you did like a lot of these, and some of them I have a whole stack that I'm not happy with them, but then I'm happy with these, and so these are some of the materials that I use. And then finally, after you dry it, people let it dry overnight, but I dry usually with a dryer, and then it goes into water, and you gotta keep an eye on it because the development. Yeah.
So James,
Yeah.
the border is the stroke.
It's the stroke,
pushing
yeah.
it on
So
the
you can picture
outside.
that. Yeah. So the strokes, for example, on the Josie, right?
Yes.
On the third image that you mentioned, this one, that was done with this brush. When I'm working with the cyanotype, I don't use this brush. It's not necessary. I use this brush. Okay, so it's a different stroke. I go back and forth. I'm always experimenting because it all really depends on the image. I want the best,
Resolution.
for the and then I have options. I say I could do come back from it alone. I could do cyanotype alone. I can mix them together. You know, I have different pigments. I'm gonna try this. I do a lot of tests. Like, yeah.
Yes, some of the works that he has in here, when you have a chance to go around again and see it for the second or third time, he has some combinations of silk screening and come back from so cyanotype and things like that. So he combines the various techniques to create
Yeah,
these
some
images.
plate,
Mantle plates also.
plate is just another
Mhm.
technique and
Yeah.
you combine with something else.
I first start with tests. You gotta do a test first with exposure. So this was a test for that image. From this test, it tells me, then I write notes in the back. I said, I think I want it a little darker. I want it a little richer. So from that test, it told me what changes to make. And that's how I went to that print. This one was the test of, I have a section on Japan.
Oh, that's
So this was the test. And then I lost detail here in the faces, which was important. So I decided that on the second, that's another thing that with these techniques, you work with layers. So you do one layer, let it dry, look at it. I really wanted to keep, I'm working on it, to keep it like this, but I lost a lot of detail here. I didn't like that. So I did the second layer with sanitite and then brought up the detail. So, and then on this one, this is a cyanotype on a project that we did. Which is working with film and cyanotype.
I'm using cloth. Using cloth. Very important.
So you have an internegative for all of these images that you've done, right?
Yes, for
Yeah.
example, you need to develop what's called contact print. So let's say you're shooting, if you know you're a photographer, so you shoot with 35, and then from that 35, you scan it into an actual, what you saw.
The internegative.
Yeah, it's a negative,
Right.
and that's a contact. So you have the paper, you coat the paper, you put the film on that paper, and you expose it. You could expose it if you have the time to expose it, depending on the day, the sunlight. You have to keep an eye. It should be a strong sun. You could expose it out, or an exposure unit.
Last question. Anyone else?
Yeah.
it's very, very important that you're an artist depending on what techniques you want to work in. I always stress that you could combine them and also not to throw prints that you think that are no good in the garbage. I don't believe in that because there's always a solution how to work with them later on. You know what I mean? Like, you know how you're an artist and just put stuff up and you don't know how to work it yet, but then eventually the light pops up and then you work on something else and it works out. So with this that we're doing here with Justiniano and James and the public here, it's very, very important that the system where where we get funding to have Taller Gallery and to have the print shop and the archives and poetry music and all of that. It's very important that artists don't work alone in their studios. That is good to keep the conversation with other artists and that other artists open up in terms of the work that they're doing to talk with other artists and to talk to the people about technique, history, and it enriches the situation better and it enriches you also. And it's good, it's a good tool as an educational tool. So these places are very, very important that we keep it alive, and that we mentor and that when we're no longer here, somebody else is going to be here to continue doing it. It's very, very important because it keeps the creative process going and it keeps people thinking. It's important to think. It's important to stop thinking and then see what you could come up with. You know what I mean? And it's very good to share. Don't be stingy. Some artists don't like to share things that they do or things that they discover on how to do them and they don't pass it on. And what happens with that? It dies. We don't want to do that. We want to share. We want to be in the progress with everybody. We want to be with the public. We want to share it with the public. And that is a whole system. So it's very, very important. Hold on a second.
So Nitza, I like that you say that because that's sort of what happens in our collective at the Rafael Tufiño Print Shop. We work collaboratively. We learn from each other. We support each other. We help each other. We see something that someone's creating, and we have conversations about it. Okay, and it's definitely a process, an educational process, and it also helps us all with what James does with his work, which is critical thinking. Okay, processes how he goes about doing it, the time and energy that he puts into it, the hours that he spends in doing it, and we're not talking about from 9 to 5. We're talking about I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to go to the shop at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm going to go back home at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay? So you're not even thinking about your resting or whatever. You're thinking about what you feel is part of your life and what you need to do in order to keep it going, which is wonderful. Is wonderful.
I have no complaints because what happens is that when you're working in the dark room, let's say one night, not all the sessions things work out the way you want, but when things happen, then you stay, and you can't stop. So that happens.
You can't stop when you're having fun.
When things are working.
Yeah.
When the prints are happening, and then speaking of what you mentioned about the additions and the artist proof.
Cuando la musa, lo que se llama la musa, que es cuando se prende esa luz de la creatividad, ese sparkle que te pasa, ahí es when you have to grab it, and then you can't stop. You gotta continue. Very, very important because that doesn't happen all the time.
It doesn't happen.
It's very, very hard to come at it, and also it's very hard to recognize it.
Yeah.
Very hard to recognize. And the more you recognize this and the more you use your intuition, and what we're talking about here is a whole creative and idea process. And it also works when you work hard with your family and your children, when you work at work with people, when you are in different situations, all of that, you use that also when it sparks, and you grab it and you go with it. Or you see it on someone else. You see it on someone else and, oh gee, you got it, run with it. Very important to be aware of that. Very important.
Thank you, Nitza.
Thanks to you, thanks to
Thank
you,
you,
guys,
Albert.
thanks
Thank
to
you,
the
Nitza.
public.
Just again, so sorry for you covering some of what you discussed. Do you work with a lot of different formats, like medium format, 120, 35 millimeter? And also when you're using older equipment, sometimes there's certain cameras that become obsolete. Do you know about ways to modify them so that you use them for modern use?
With my collection of negatives, I work with 35 millimeter and what's called 2 1/4. Uh, the actual cameras, I've had them for very long, but my focus is on my negatives. I work with the negatives, and this is how it's the process that leads me to making these prints.
So,
Thank you for joining us, Justiniano, thank you to the public.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Omar, for doing this wonderful video.
Group chat?
Thank you for calling. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you,
A group chat?
Yes.
Yeah, group chat.
Let's do a group chat.